Hello guys, in this video let's use HTTP client to call a service. So we have this user management service, then we have this dashboard service. Now let's use HTTP client for calling user management service from dashboard service. To be specific, we will call API get user from load user dashboard API. Now the technology in which this user management service is developed, it does not matter. And then we'll observe the disadvantages of using HTTP client. So first we have to handle serialization and deserialization ourselves, and we have to manually construct that HTTP request. Okay, and then in next video we will call same API but we will use Refit. Now we are in Visual Studio. I have created this user management service. So again guys, the technology in which it's been developed does not matter. And here if you observe, we have three APIs, that is get user, get users, and then this add user. Okay, and if you see, we have not added any logic over here, we are simply returning hard coded data over here. Okay, now let's try to run one of these APIs through Postman, and for that I will first run this service. So let's run. So our service is running now. Now let me simply copy this URL. Let's go to Postman and let's try to run this API. And if I run it, see, we get this output, that is user ID 1 and username Harshal. Okay. Now let's go to dashboard service and let's try to call this API from there. So we are in dashboard service and we are in this method, that is load user dashboard. So again it's an API. Okay, and here let's try to call that user management service API. So I will say using where HTTP client is equal to new HTTP client. Okay, then I will say HTTP client dot base address is equal to, so base address will be, let's go here, I'll copy it till this API, so it will be new URL. To this let's specify this URL. Okay, now let's actually call that get API. So we'll say where response is equal to await HTTP client dot get async, and to this we need to provide this get user 1. Okay, now this will return HTTP response to us. Now we need to first convert it into JSON and then we need to deserialize it to an instance of class user. Okay, so let's do that. So I will say where response in JSON is equal to await response dot content dot it's read as string async. Okay, and finally let's convert it into an instance of class user. So I'll say user is equal to JSON convert dot deserialize object in type class user, and then we need to provide this response in JSON as an input to this. Okay, that's it. Let's save. Let's add a debugger on this line number 28. Okay, and let's run our program. Now you see our function app is running and we have this API. Okay, now let's try to call this API from Postman so that debugger will be hit and we can check the contents of instance user. So I have copied the URL. Let's go to the Postman. Let's paste it over here. Let me say one over here and let's send. and you see the debugger has been hit. And if I press F10 and if I check the content, see user ID 1 and Herschel 10, that means we have successfully called the service using HTTP client. And now if you observe, we had to do serialization and deserialization ourselves, plus we have to manually construct HTTP request. Okay.